create the problems, offer the solutions. These front organizations, or these front groups, are organizations within organizations, because the members go off and become part of the government, become part of the military, the security services, the education system, the media, the economic system, and they work to their own agenda within these organizations. All are infiltrated with this New World Order philosophy by members of these brotherhood fronts. And if you want to know what the future foreign policy, and this can be proved to be true if you read the back numbers, if you want to know what the future foreign policy of the United States will be, you just have to read a magazine called Foreign Affairs, the magazine of the Council on Foreign Relations. Because what it writes today, the American government will do tomorrow. We have a democracy in the United States and in Britain and in other so-called free countries. You must be joking. In 1990, there was an Illuminati coup d'etat in Britain and no one realized it. Another major element of this network of front organizations and secret government of the world, which is what it effectively is something called the Bilderberg Group. It's called the Bilderberg Group because it first met publicly in 1954 in a hotel called the Bilderberg in Holland, the Netherlands, under the chairmanship, for a long time, of Prince Bernhard of the House of Orange, who was a member of the German SS and later became chairman of Shell Oil. The Bilderberg Group is run by the Rockefellers, the Rothschild empires, among others. And it brings together once a year, and it never meets in the same place twice, all the people who can help with the manipulation in all these areas that I'm talking about. Media, politics, and in politics I'm not talking about Fred Jones, MP for Margate or whatever. I'm talking about prime ministerial level. The Director General of NATO is always there. And they meet, as I say, once a year, never meet in the same place twice, to decide what the future is going to be for the following year on the road to the New World Order. The Bilderberg Group is designed like all the others. It's a series of circles with a central core elite. The steering committee, or the permanent staff of the Bilderberg Group, they know the agenda, and they're working constantly full-time towards it. Then there is another circle outside of that, which are the regular attenders of the Bilderberg Group meetings. These are people from the media and all the areas that I'm talking about who also know the agenda, but they work towards it not within the Bilderberg Group full-time, but in their own area of influence, wherever it may be. And then there is another circle who are politicians and people from other areas of influence who don't know the full agenda, or even sometimes any agenda, but are invited to maybe one meeting, maybe a couple, to be fed the party line that centralized world government, etc., is a good idea. So remember, the Illuminati and the Bilderberg Group and this network I'm talking about want a world government, world central bank, world currency and world army. And the penultimate stage towards that is the creation of trading blocs around the world, European Community, the North American Free Trade Area, and one based down with Japan and Australia. And from this situation where you have the three trading blocs that are now becoming centralized politically and centralized in terms of currency, or that's the way that we're being pushed, they then will go global. And it's interesting, I came across only this week a quote in a book written in 1942 by Joseph Stalin, that great liberal from the Soviet Union. And in his book he says this, 1942, "Divide the world into regional groups as a transitional stage to world government. Populations will more readily abandon their national loyalties to a vague regional loyalty than they will for a world authority. Later, the regional can be brought all the way to a super world government." And that, in a paragraph, is precisely what these trading blocs around the world are being created to do. Now, anyone who gets seriously in the way of that aim of a United States of Europe has to be undermined and removed in some way. And in May 1989, an investigative newspaper in America called Spotlight, that had investigated this for a long time, reported that it had managed to establish that at the Bilderberg Group meeting on La Toja Island off Spain, in that same month, May 1989, it was decided that Margaret Thatcher would be removed as Prime Minister of Britain because of, quote, her refusal to yield British sovereignty to the European superstate that is to emerge after 1992. And of course, in 1990, a year after that Bilderberg Group meeting, Margaret Thatcher was removed while in office. Now, personally, I couldn't be more opposed to the policies of Margaret Thatcher, but if she's going to be removed, it should be by the people of this country and not by some secret unelected government. And of course, what happens in that situation is that people lower down the initiation level, the gophers, get the order that she's got to go. And when we talk here about the Conservative Party leader in this country changing, or whether he's going to stay or she's going to stay, along comes this phrase, it will be decided by the men in grey suits. Well, the men in grey suits are largely just Illuminati gophers. Now, what happens is these men in grey suits don't go around the tea rooms of the House of Commons saying to Conservative MPs, the Bilderberg Group's decided she's got to go, you know, and they say, all right, and we'll vote for that. They go around and they do it in a much more subtle fashion. They'll get someone who's got a small majority, for instance, and they'll say, you know, if she stays, you've got no chance, mate. And they'll say to ministers, you know, you better enjoy it while you can because you're not going to be a minister after the next election. And then they get the media, which they also control, to start undermining the target figure through stories in the papers and what have you. And in the end, a momentum is built up that is unstoppable. And in the end, that person goes in whatever form it may be. In terms of Margaret Thatcher, she was voted out by her own side. Finding out what's going on within these Bilderberg Group meetings is very difficult for obvious reasons. But Lord Carrington, the former British Cabinet Minister and Secretary General of NATO, became its chairman in 1991, and he's also a president of the Royal Institute of International Affairs, Chatham House, another part of this network. And a name that keeps coming up again and again, no matter who you talk to and what the researcher is, and almost what subject area they're researching, is Henry Kissinger, the former Secretary of State in America. He's got a full house. He's a member of the Bilderberg Group, the Trilateral Commission, the Council on Foreign Relations. Never gets home, you know. He must be at a meeting every hour of every day. Other people known to have attended the 1991 Bilderberg Group meeting in Baden-Baden, Germany, was Bill Clinton, then the governor of Arkansas, the Rhodes Scholar, who then became president very soon afterwards of the United States. The Secretary General of NATO was there in 1991, when Spotlight had a very good year of uncovering who was there. So were the high and mighty of politics, banking, the Rockefellers, representatives of the big global companies, the military, the media, and people like the owner of the Washington Post, Katharine Graham, who also has a full set. She's a member of all these different front organizations, very cozy little club. And it's interesting that you don't read reports of these Bilderberg Group meetings in the Times, the Sunday Times, the Sun, Today. Funny, really, because one of the people at that 1991 Bilderberg Group meeting, and very much involved in the organization, was, according to Spotlight, a man called Andrew Knight, the then chairman of Rupert Murdoch's News International, which owns all those papers. You don't read about Bilderberg meetings in the Daily Telegraph either. And yet its owner, Conrad Black, was also at that meeting and has been at many others. And who just happens to be on the board of the Hollinger Corporation of Conrad Black that owns the Daily Telegraph and goodness knows how many other outlets, media outlets around the world? Henry Kissinger and Lord Carrington. Same names keep coming up all around the place, time and time again.